It encourages presence, awareness, and resilience in the face of complexity. We are equally grateful to have the Arts Council of Long Beach, a vital partner in demonstrating how community-based art can serve as a powerful public health resource. Their work shows us that access to art is not an extra, it is essential. It builds belonging, supports mental health, honors cultural expression, and creates spaces where people feel seen and valued. In a diverse and vibrant city such as Long Beach, this kind of work strengthens the very fabric of well-being. As Dean, I see enormous potential in conversations like the ones we all have here today, which is one of the reasons why I sort of encouraged the Lauda Lecture Committee to focus on art and health for this year's lecture. These conversations push us beyond traditional silos. They invite collaboration between clinicians and artists, educators, and community leaders. And they help us imagine systems of care that are not only effective, but humane and human. My hope is that you leave today with new ideas, new questions, and perhaps even new practices you can carry into your work, whether that is in a classroom, a clinic, a studio, or the broader community. Wellness is not something we achieve alone, it is something we create together. Thank you for being part of this series, for supporting interdisciplinary dialogue, and the work you do every day to advance health, creativity, and community well-being. So I'm looking forward to today's speakers and the conversations around the speakers and the partnerships that will undoubtedly grow from today. Welcome, and let us begin. So I'd like to introduce Marcel Foster from, I want to say it correctly. Oh my gosh, where's my page? Performance hypothesis.
Let me just grab the clicker over there. All right. So, thank you so much, Grace, for those amazing remarks. I was writing things down around our health system stretch and the fact that wellness is something we co-create. So I may have to ask you for those remarks and credit you at a later time. So thank you so much. Thank you all so much for this opportunity, and it's really just a tremendous honor to be here today. So I also want to first introduce myself, Marcel Foster, as Dean Grace had shared. And then following my overview, we'll have panelists Karen Burns, Lisa Peterson, Joe Garcia, Jen Kuo, and Betty. You'll learn more about us as we speak, and just very excited and very honored to be here today. So for today, we'll be talking about the fact that performance hypothesis truly has a hypothesis that the arts measurably can improve health outcomes. The good news is we are not the only ones who believe that. There is now a wealth of probably thousands of peer-reviewed articles that point to every genre you can think of and more, and how it impacts positively our mental health and other health outcomes. So throughout today's presentation, I'll be speaking in more detail about that, and then we'll hear some case studies that are happening right here in Long Beach and in California. So as far as the agenda goes, we'll be talking through that, and then we'll hear from the panel, and then have questions and answer both for my overview talk as well as the panel. So arts and well-being, what does that mean? It has a lot of implications, and as Grace reflected on, as somebody who trained in the sciences, there's the empirical processes about logic, whereas creativity, as somebody who trained and worked professionally in dance and theater, these processes aren't necessarily logical. It's about a different sort of experience. But to that end, the World Health Organization has put forth their own arts and health initiative across the globe, and really make the case and advocate for the fact that the arts are ingrained in who we are as human beings. That throughout time, throughout all cultures, we see cultural and creative expression through movement, performance, through writing, through oral histories and narrative, and through the visual arts, and I could go on with other kinds of genre topics. And so given that the arts are really ingrained in who we are, how can we use these mechanisms that are ingrained in us to uplift ourselves, uplift individuals, and uplift our communities? So as of today, we have what we've mapped out to be 7 emerging subfields. I'll talk through each of these subfields and case studies that Performance Hypothesis has been engaged in, some just beginning, and then a few others that we've been working on for now 5 years. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. So raise your hand if you like singing in the shower, doodling, if you have some kind of hobby that maybe you're a little ashamed of. Well, there are all kinds of people who have been doing research that shows that there's evidence that these daily hobbies are outstanding for your health. 3 quick examples is that it turns out what they taught me in elementary, which was to pay attention and not doodle, it's the opposite. There's now all kinds of neuroarts research that shows that when you doodle, you actually listen better and your memory retains the information more. In addition to that, there's a wealth of information now looking to the fact that playing an instrument, it doesn't matter how good or bad you are, has a huge role in slowing down the process and even preventing neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. We additionally have an example of knitting. Some really exciting news is that this fall I will begin, perhaps because I'm a glutton for punishment, my own doctorate. So I'll be getting my PhD and I'll be working with an advisor, Anne Ferry, at Oxford University. I'll stay in my hometown, Atlanta, but be working as a part-time student. But one of the realms of research that she does is looking at the impact that knitting and crafting has, both in terms of psychological well-being and building communities and managing trauma and stress. So these are just a few case studies, the glimpse on that top of that glacier in terms of how everyday individual hobbies have huge impacts that we're just beginning to understand on our health. The second emerging subfield is that of communities, and Grace spoke so wonderfully around the idea that community is something that we co-create, and that goes with wellness. So looking beyond these individual daily habits, we can see that in outside of the clinical context, in healthcare settings, that there is an enormous amount of research showing that the arts play a huge role in social belonging. Social belonging has gotten quite a bit of attention because our former Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, did all kinds of research on the loneliness epidemic and pointed to the fact that prolonged loneliness has worse impacts on our health than smoking, which I could not believe, but the evidence and research was there. And so community arts and engaging in community arts plays a major role in helping to address loneliness and feelings of isolation. So one case study from Performance Hypothesis is a project called Thriving Together Atlanta. It's a project that's funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies, and they'll be rolling out their next year of funding, so get ready, Long Beach. They awarded 2 cities to do public arts engagement. For the case of Atlanta, we're looking at public arts engagement and its impact on health. So in Atlanta, we've developed community-based murals, as well as a wraparound mural on buses throughout the city, in addition to a number of other activities. We are looking at health outcomes related to taking more action in your neighborhood, related to the outcome that voting and civic engagement is tied to a longer, healthier life. In addition to that, Dr. Karen Burns, who you'll hear from soon, who is our Director of Research and Evaluation of Performance Hypothesis, is leading a program with the High Museum in Atlanta. One could say it's like a Sacred Grove Center of Atlanta, Not quite as amazing, but but the High Museum, we were successful in winning National Endowment for the Arts grant to look at the health outcomes of viewing visual art. We can speak more to that a little bit later on, but we're looking at dimensions of the impact of physical health, mental health, social belonging, as well as other constructs. All right, so both hobbies, the individual practices, and the communities, in my brain I think of these fields kind of as informal fields, that as a result of being a person and engaging in communities, we have these unknown health benefits. Our third little bucket here is known as public health, and this is much more formal. There's nothing too formal about singing in the shower or doodling, whereas if you are working in public health, you know that there's a long research and protocol design, and for decades, public health has been working with artists, especially related to public health communications. So back in 2021, sorry, one of my best friends from college is here, and I'm like, you're getting verklempt. Hey, Remy. Okay, so I haven't seen this man in years. And we studied art together. So, all right. So what you're looking at here is a dashboard of a project called Equitable Vaccines. As somebody who's based in Atlanta, I worked at the CDC for many years. And back in 2021, the CDC launched what was called Arts for Vaccine Confidence. Performance Hypothesis, along with arts partners, had success in winning CDC funding to leverage the arts to boost vaccine confidence and relay the message that COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. There's a lot of information that goes into this, so we do have a website, equitablevaccines.org, but it's not public health unless you have a dashboard. So just quickly, you can see the age groups there. You can see primarily we have middle-aged adults between 36 to 64. This particular project, especially early on, prioritized rural Black communities throughout Georgia. And so you can see that overwhelmingly the folks who participated in this were Black. And then you see that there were 709 vaccines as a result of these arts events. And so there's just a wealth of evidence related to arts in public health communications. But beyond that, thinking about the arts as a mechanism of health itself. And so we have the great honor of working with Emory professor Madeline Hackney, who is a worldwide expert in dance for Parkinson's. We've had success now winning 2 NEA grants to promote her method of adapted tango. Her research, she was the first person to do a randomized clinical controlled trial. If you're not a health nerd like me, what that means is the most clinical evidence you can possibly do to really hone in on the actual biomedical effect. And her research shows that adapted tango is more effective than any pharmaceutical or any other intervention that we know of, including boxing and other wonderful interventions. So we've had the success of working with her and rolling out more Dance for Parkinson's initiatives, primarily in Atlanta and Georgia. So I like these 2 examples of the equitable vaccines because it really shows, oh, the arts helps bring people together, it helps convey culturally responsive messages. But for Dance and Parkinson's, it's not about public health communications, it's about the fact that the arts intervention itself is, to a certain extent, a medicine, and it's highly effective as proven through her evidence-based research. So that is a nice segue into yet another field, and that we'll talk about more with Jen Kuo, and that is the field of neuroarts. A friend and colleague based at Johns Hopkins University, Susan Maximin, is the visionary of this. For decades, she's been working with neurologists at Hopkins, along with her art, to show how art just transforms and uplifts the brain. Highly recommend. Unfortunately, I don't get any kickback for selling this book. I should, But highly recommend this New York Times bestseller, Your Brain on Art. It's an easy read, beautiful art included, thank goodness, and really just does an outstanding job of showing just the array of ways that art impacts the brain in positive ways. So, how is performance hypothesis related to this? Two quick examples. We are working closely with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra on two different projects related to neurodegeneration or Alzheimer's. The first is with Georgia State University and working with elders singing in choirs, because there's, I believe, I could be wrong, I think the #1 studied arts and health topic is choral singing, especially with elders. And so we are building out a control trial and using fMRI scans for elders in these choral choirs to look at the impact that happens for choral singing. In addition, also with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, we had success in winning a $200,000 grant from the Alzheimer's Foundation of America to look at the impact that live orchestral music has for folks not only living with Alzheimer's, but also their caregivers, and how attending a live music event helps to strengthen that relationship for the caregivers who, as we all know, if you've been a caregiver like me, it's not the easiest job, and you need different kinds of resources to support that relationship and manage the stress. So that is our fourth sub-bucket there. Now we'll move on to something that I think Grace really spoke very eloquently to, which is arts in healthcare settings. I really could spend a whole weekend on this. Recently, Jen Kuo and I published a scoping review, which we'll talk about in a moment, but there is enormous amounts of programs and enormous amounts of research that shows the benefit that the arts have, not only for patients, but for staff, and helping to manage the stress of the job, helping to address some symptoms of staff burnout, as well as also helping the caregivers themselves. So I'll make sure to loop back to that, because it's actually linked to a funny story in Georgia that I'll tell at the end. So the first example is music. There's all kinds of programs of performative arts, dance, narrative, theater, and music directly happening in the patient rooms, in hallways, in corridors. I'm going to jump ahead to a slide here. This gentleman on the far left, he's the former dean of Morehouse School of Medicine, now the president at Western Michigan University, and he tells a story about how he very, very hesitantly brought in live musicians into the emergency room setting of a hospital. He thought it would be a disaster, he thought there was enough chaos, we don't need a violinist, for goodness sake. And he was wrong, and he loves telling people that he was wrong, because he'll tell you stories about how there was a live musician in a patient room when the staff family were there to witness the passing of their friend in the patient room, and how that live music helped connect them and process that moment, how it actually helped manage the chaos and stress. All kinds of examples of arts in healthcare. Here we have a photograph of a mural in a hospital. This is in New York City. And so this was the paper that Chen and I worked on. It was something like 20,000 articles, and we winnowed it down to 62. 62 articles that specifically speak to the health impacts that visual art has in hospitals for patients, staff, and visitors. And so that is just merely a scoping review. As part of that process, we also led research at 4 hospitals globally, looking at the impact that murals have, again, across these 3 different populations. And then the last example, an additional example, and this ties with neuro arts and neuroaesthetics, is the architecture, the design of the healthcare space. We have here on the far left or right, depending on where you're looking, Long Beach Hospital, right? And your experience of the hospital itself, the architecture has direct correlations with, again, these staff burnout, stress management, as well as health outcomes. There's a whole journal just called Healthcare Design and Research, looking at how the architecture and space impacts the patient, staff, and visitors. All right, so this is a great segue to our penultimate example here, which are licensed creative art therapists. So raise your hand if you knew about creative art therapies. Okay, so about half the group. So I learned recently that creative art therapy formally began as a licensed practice in 1969. So literally for more than 50 years, there have been a clinical licensed practice of using things like dance therapy, music therapy, and the list goes on of clinical practices that are used to address mental health and different kinds of health outcomes. One really stellar example of that is a program called Creative Forces. In 2010, a staff member of the NEA's named Bill O'Brien had the brilliant idea of what if we used creative art therapies to treat PTSD among veterans and military personnel. And so now, across at least 10 military bases and all the VA systems, you have dance therapists, music therapists, and visual art therapists, like this example here, helping to process PTSD. Performance Hypothesis has been working as an external evaluator with Creative Forces for 4 years now, looking at how these systems can be improved, especially within military settings. We have another example, a picture here of music therapy that's happening that can be used in all kinds of different populations. And then our final and last bucket here of a field is what's known as arts prescribing. And this is really where some exciting innovation is happening, especially here in California. I keep referencing Jen Kuo, but that's because she's involved in so much, and so you'll hear more from her on this. But in California, got started what's known as Social Prescribing USA. The idea is this. I'm going to my psychiatrist to manage, say, anxiety and depression. I'm getting my pharmaceutical, Effexor, Prozac, whatever it may be. And my psychiatrist says, you know what, you've been talking about feeling a little isolated. So I think in addition to you taking this medication, I'm gonna go ahead and prescribe to you some art. What kind of art do you wanna see? Do you wanna go to the museum? Do you wanna go to the orchestra? Do you wanna go to a concert? And we are now building out the systems with America's Insurance to have the art visits subsidized by your insurance companies. So this is building slowly, bit by bit, with all kinds of different organizations involved. And so the first kind of initial study took place at Stanford University with the students there, and having the Stanford medical insurance cover different kinds of arts engagements at the campus. We also have pictures from New Jersey and the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, and Performance Hypothesis is collaborating with this center related to different kinds of programs. New Jersey has had a really great example of a homegrown arts prescribing program that they've been able to build out with their state medical insurance. And so again, there's lots of different examples, but these are just 2 case studies on our end. So those are the 7 fields. We did it, peeps. Lots to take in. Thank you for your focus. And again, these are changing. We did this presentation, Karen and I did something similar to this about a year ago, and I think at that time it was only 5. So probably if we do this again, these circles will be rearranged as it goes in any kind of field. We're dynamically changing. So back to arts and well-being. Just a quick snapshot on the different institutions involved. The good news is that the WHO is on board. We may not have a formal affiliation with them as a country right now. We have a lot of problems in this country right now, understanding of the year. But the WHO is on board. UNESCO recently appointed Daisy Fancourt, somebody else. If you are geeking out on this, definitely read her books. Daisy Fancourt, easy name to remember. She's now the chair of Arts and Health for UNESCO. And there's just a number of different organizations. Since we're in Long Beach, we'll take a moment to shout out some California-based organizations, such as the UC San Francisco Sound Health Network. They really have been on the ground, especially building the enthusiasm and the research related to music and its impact on Alzheimer's. We also have with us today the Sagerstrom Center, the Long Beach Arts Council, Californians for the Arts, and just a huge array. So if you want to get more involved, the good news is there's a lot of conferences. The one I would encourage you to go to is National Organization for Arts and Health. They have ongoing online webinars, really accessible platforms, and a conference will be in Rochester, New York, coming up. There are other conferences, but I think start with NOAA so we don't get overwhelmed. So looping back to that story from Georgia. So back when we looked at that photo and I talked about my friend Adrian Tyndall, who's at Morehouse, and his experience with music in hospitals, that was part of a huge convening that Performance Hypothesis directed in Atlanta called Healing Arts Atlanta. By hosting that convening like we are today, we attracted a state policymaker, Representative Kim Schofield, and she had a light bulb moment. She was like, what if Georgia had a statewide arts and health commission? So we worked for years to get one into place, and it didn't really go anywhere. So finally, she said, you know what you need to do is you need to talk to some Republicans, which maybe you can guess I don't do very well, but I did it anyway, and nonpartisan here. And so I reached out to State Representative Todd Jones. Todd Jones, his line is relentless conservative, and he's a mental health champion. He happens to have a son who, this is public information, is living with schizoaffective disorder, and he has been a major player in changing policies and accessibility to mental health resources in the state of Georgia. So I was able to get on a phone call with him, and he was asking a lot of questions. He's like, well, is there peer-reviewed evidence for this? I was like, Representative Jones, is there? And he's like, okay, well, send it to me and then I'll get back to you. So I sent him just a few scoping reviews, including ours, Jen. And he gets back to me 2 weeks later and he says, okay, when you were talking to me, my wife was in the room and you were on speakerphone. And the second that finished, my wife said to me, can you imagine how much better our lives would have been when we were in the hospital and we had access to the arts? And so because of that personal experience, because of that insight, he went on board to work with Kim Schofield and a number of other representatives to pass what's now known as Georgia House Resolution 1007, which is an arts and mental health resolution stating that the arts are evidence-based for advancing mental health outcomes in the state of Georgia. So once this came out, I learned that this was the first legislation piece of its kind in the nation. And so of course, we had a big gathering, and it included, if you watched Pose, one of the actors, DeLon Burnside, and many other speakers, including the president of the American Psychological Association, of course, Representative Schofield, that's her right there. And we celebrated being the first state in the nation to pass any kind of legislative measure related to all of these topics I've been talking about today. So I think that a lot of folks say in places like, I don't know, Washington, Oregon, other states are like, what? Georgia? So, this is your call. If we can make it happen in Georgia, you all can make some exciting policy changes here. So, we'll leave with this formal state legislation here on this note. Be it resolved, oh goodness, I didn't look cleansed. Be it resolved by the Georgia House of Representatives that the essential role of artists, arts organizations, art therapists, and Arts for Health initiatives in supporting recovery from trauma, addressing the 12 outcomes, Remy, you're not allowed to come to anything again, building community resilience, and increasing public safety. So be it resolved, and be it resolved that we can do this, of course, not only in Georgia, but certainly here in California. So thank you. We have 5-ish minutes for questions, and then we'll switch out to our amazing local panelists. So come at me with any questions. I should also say that I teach with the Center for Arts and Medicine at University of Florida, so I can handle tough questions. Bring it.
So where is like pushing policy forward? Where is that within performance hypothesis or like as a goal? Is that sorry for how it
No, good question. I ask myself that every day. So performance hypothesis, that you could say that was pro bono work that we did, and it was just really an unanticipated outcome. We do host convenings, and as a result of hosting a convening, we had a legislator say, I want to see an Arts and Health Commission happen. So I think in general, if an elected official says, I want to see a statewide initiative as a result of the work that you do, the answer is yes. But I do think that ties to the work that we do with research and evaluation, and that research and evaluation does have a role in policy advancement, policy creation, and policy advocacy. Yeah, hopefully we'll somehow get paid for this kind of work. It's not in our current business plan. Yes?
My question relates to the neural aspect.
Yeah.
Nursing and medicine. I'm not questioning the effect of art on the outcome, but how does it affect? Is it the insight? Is it what is the neurophysiology effect of art? How does it affect those physiologic aspects?
That is a great question, and it completely depends on the arts mechanism and what's being researched. I want to say off the top of my head, there's research related to like neurotransmitter stabilization, related to like the typical hormones we hear, related to like dopamine and as well. But certainly I am not a neurobiologist or a neurologist, and there's a whole book on this. So I would say in general it really depends. So for the example of Dance for Parkinson's, what it's actually looking at is the slowing down of a disease of neurodegeneration. But for other neuro arts research, they're looking at other neurological mechanisms. So sorry that's so big.
So it's coming up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, I wish I got a cut for the book because it's very good. It'll explain it in much more specific terms than I just did.
With the emerging body of research that looks at psychedelics to help with mental health issues,
Yes.
it seems like it could go hand in hand with the arts.
It does, yeah. So there's a researcher at Emory who actually looks at that. His name is Ali Johns Rabi, and what he does is psychedelic research as well as MDMA, looking at how appropriate dosages of that can actually be therapeutic, and engages the arts with the participants. So they get up their own selection of music, they get their own access to the arts, and the artistic experience is part of that research. Yeah. Lots of research on that. That'll probably be a new.
It's
Yeah,
totally-
exactly. And then the following question is, how can my friend be a research subject? Asking for a friend. Other questions?
I have a question about the, the older people than the solos.
Yeah.
Being like a really, because I can kind of see how that would be sort of a primary focus. What exactly are they hoping to find with that, in the MRIs and the functional MRI?
Yes, I'll need to follow up with you, just send me these sort of protocol.
So it's another neuro.
Yeah, and we have a neuroscientist on that, but I do think it's looking again at at the choral singing slowing down the neurodegenerative process, because the that can be measured, and so it's looking at, the sustaining of certain neurotransmitters in cells, if that makes sense. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. About the adaptive tangle or?
Yes, yeah.
So along similar lines as Lucy had been using in brain in terms of the neurotransmitter stabilizing that. Because of the success of that program, could you mention that it was part of a program for patients that are kind of in rehab facilities, or was that like just a program they offered to volunteers?
Yes. So Madeline Hackney, she offers classes twice a week, and I think effectively she recruits people who've been diagnosed with Parkinson's to participate. I think she, depending on the research, there's different cohorts and sizes, but yeah, for her paper that used the RCCT, I think it was hundreds of people who really looked at it.
I thought it was like a program offered and was affiliated with programs for the services for the patients, but.
That probably does exist, and the best example, or another example of Dance for Parkinson's, is the Mark Morris dance group in New York City, and they actually have an organization called Dance for Parkinson's, and they probably are linked to some social prescribing or arts prescribing programs. Yeah, for sure. And Scott, the last question, yes.
I'm with the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute here, so it knows us all. And, when I'm watching this, and I see so many similarities in the programs that we offer to our older adults. And oftentimes, we talk about some of these outcomes, but I don't think they've ever really been formalized or anything. And I think it would be really interesting to see for some of these research endeavors that they want to, there's like 127 colleges, but there's also a lot of lifelong learning programs at a lot of different colleges to really partner, because some of these programs are already in place.
Yes.
We have a choral group, we have an art group, we have so many things that you see the possibility of being able to utilize those type of organizations in partnership to further that research and better validate. And I will tell you that at one point, we were getting outreach to different healthcare advantage programs that were willing to pay their participants to join lifelong learning programs because of the benefits that they get from that, the health benefits and the outcomes we get.
Yes, yeah, and there are other universities that I know of that look to that too, like the informal groups, and it speaks to that first, what I call the hobbies or the everyday practices, that engaging in these really has a huge impact on their overall health, and without question on social belonging, especially with the more choral groups and ones involved in people. So.
And I'd love to just add something too, like a cool connection to the Arts Council for Long Beach, because I think Mark connected us
Yes.
with email.
Oh,
So
cool.
Yes, Mark, I know, because Mark was gonna try to come today, because when I saw this, I said, Mark, this is right up your alley.
Yeah, so let's partner because we can make it
Yeah.
happen.
And, when I see some of this stuff, it's so good to see it validated. Before I went into higher education, I taught recreational therapy for years, I worked with a recreational therapist, I worked with all these psychotherapists, and we would just see the benefits. So it's exciting for me to finally see it documented and recognized. And one of the things that I was also challenged is that we still have a ways to go in terms of getting the medical, clinicians to really recognize it. And it gets kind of stuck to sort of medical model, prescription, kind of thing, and I'm sure it's just, yeah, so. I'm excited to really see this.
Great, thank you all. And so I'm gonna give it away to our panelists who will speak more to how they're doing this work on a local level. So thank you so much.
I think this is okay. So this is perfect because this is what this whole day is all about. It's like making local connections because so many people are doing such great things in this space. They have for so long, they are. So it's just exciting to bring partnerships together. So my name is Karen Burns. I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation at Performance Hypothesis. I also am with Betty on the Arts Council for Long Beach. And it's so cool to be doing this stuff here because a lot of the work we do is East Coast and Atlanta based. So this is tremendous for us to be here. And so I'm sitting next to like the most incredible group of people right now doing amazing work in this space. So rather than go on and on about how great Long Beach is, because we probably live here and love it, I'm going to let them talk about their amazing work and then hopefully get them to move down to Long Beach as well. Okay, so we're just going to go down the line. We have some slides too to give visual representation to some of their rad work. So Joe, I'm just going to pass it over to you. So please, everybody, share a little bit about you, your organization, and your role in this big arts and wellness space.
Thank you. I think I can do it without the microphone. I project pretty well. Joe Garcia. I'm here representing San Quentin Skunk Works, which is a social innovation lab founded and still driven by incarcerated men inside San Quentin State Prison. I don't know how much you guys know about this, but Governor Newsom has rebranded San Quentin State Prison as San Quentin Rehabilitation Center, which has been the current vibe there for well over the last decade or two, but he wanted to make it official. I was incarcerated at San Quentin when Skunk Works first began, and our vision has always been to give the incarcerated community their own agency to shape the change, to shape their own change. We're dealing with accountability, rehabilitation, personal transformation, victims awareness. How do we funnel all that in a way that the people who have to go through it can take some control over these programs, these curriculums? There's all kinds of different initiatives that San Quentin Skunk Works does from the inside out. But the reason that I'm here, which is really exciting, is we wanted to figure out a way to change the actual physical environment to represent all this positive rehabilitation. And our deal was to bring in outside artists to work with the residents to change this bleak, drab, centuries-old architecture and bring light and color and beauty. Because as you listen to Marcel, that matters. That makes a difference to the way that people reflect on themselves, the way they participate in education, rehabilitation. And so we have been incredibly successful over the last year, bringing in artists, reimagining these terrible old walls that just get slapped on another coat of beige paint every 10 or 20 years. And yeah, it's been incredible. The thing that really changed for me is we started out, let's make it pretty, let's make it look good. But then getting the residents to participate in these projects and having them be able to say, I did that. I'm not an artist, but I played with color, I played with light, I did something I never thought would be, before I came to prison, I never thought I'd be able to do this. And then here they are working side by side with these incredible artists. And, as the slides show, there they are. Actually, I was involved. I got to go inside San Quentin and working that project with LC, who we brought all the way from Dubai to San Quentin. And so yeah, it was that's phase 47 in a small recreational yard that guys pass by this wall and go to chow, go to their education, go to the recreational yard every day. And they stop, they drink coffee, they have conversations. State legislators come in to tour now and see this. And so, you know, when you start having a conversation about art and about beauty, it changes your outlook on life. And so, one project at a time, that is what we're doing inside San Quentin.
So my name is Lisa Peterson. I'm the Vice President of Education and Engagement at Sagerstrom Center for the Arts. We are Orange County's Performing Arts Center. And we run a number of programs through education and engagement. And we mostly define our programs in this capacity at access and opportunity. We serve learning opportunities to all age groups and backgrounds. Specifically with the arts and health piece, we have Studio D, our art school for all abilities, and with this program, the mission is to provide a space for students of all abilities to explore and develop their creative potential through high quality, joyful arts instruction. So this program started way back in 2017 as primarily a dance program, and we've since built it out to involve arts of all disciplines. We have both an enrollment group on campus, where we have a steady group of about 100 enrolled students, and we're looking for dedicated space to double that impact. And then we are also out in the community, serving school districts, working with Easter Seals, and a number of other organizations. So as you can see, our student profile here is they have various diagnoses, everything from Down syndrome, anxiety, mobility limitations, and some of the other pieces listed and not here. Our students are ages 3+. Our oldest student is currently 40 years old, so we serve all age groups. And our student goals are to encourage confident exploration and growth. And really viewing this as an arts and well-being initiative, because as we know, disability is not something that we are looking to change. It's something that we are looking to create confidence around and make sure that our participants can be confident and that operate in the world as everyone else in an inclusive way. This program, should I just do it? Okay. Casa and Promise. This program has a few different ways of engaging. I don't know if this video will work. We'll wait for that. But Casa and Promise focuses on teenagers who are under-resourced. So that's referring to both incarcerated, previously incarcerated youth, and youth that are in alternative high school sites. And that could be for any variety of reasons. It may be that they have learning challenges, they're experiencing domestic violence, they're going through homelessness. It could be a variety of reasons that they're there, but at any rate, they are not able to attend traditional high school setting. And during that time, we are able to deliver arts experiences all year round in all disciplines on their site. And then for 2 weeks every summer, we invite students to come to Sagerstrom Center. We provide transportation to get them there, and we provide a full 2-week musical theater all-day camp for them. And at the end of the camp, they have a culmination show where the public is invited. So if they are an incarcerated youth, their family can come and see them there. It's really a
wearing my hat and representing the work of California for the Arts. Anybody have heard of California for the Arts? Okay, cool, awesome. So I work as a consultant for them. They are a statewide advocacy organization, and I'm kind of highlighting on the slide today things that we've been doing to move along the arts and health space. So I started about 3 years ago. They've always been advocates for the creative economy, right? Making sure artists and culture bearers and creative workers get equitable pay, fair housing opportunities, and they've been kind of planting the seeds since like 2019, but they really wanted to jump into the playground, the sandbox, if you will. So 3 key pillars that we focus on is first, you'll see there is the educate. So just raising awareness about what arts and health is about, with Marcel's presentations and things like this, just very low-level, accessible opportunities. So I created an introduction guide for them. It's a bird's eye view on everything arts and health. So just like a little appetizer for you to kind of learn about the different moving parts from programs, funding, the benefits of arts and health, the research. And so I've gotten a lot of feedback from college professors utilizing that intro guide because they've had all the information like in emails and different folders, but not something like one complete, one-stop shop resource. So that's great to hear. Of course, since then, this came out early last year, it's already outdated. There's so many more new things, right? So it's great to just see that momentum go. We also have webinar series that's available on YouTube. This one was the one that we did in 2025. I don't think I have to hold this. Okay, perfect. So 2025 is bridging creative arts therapies with community-based artists. So I wanted to showcase that there's a spectrum of this work that can be done with everyone from clinical, therapeutic professionals, as well as people with lived experiences practicing their own artistic skills. So if you can go back one more. Oh, should I? Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay. Speaking of the spectrum of the roles, I work with a lot of different folks from across spectrum. So on one end, we have awesome teaching, performing artists that maybe work in health education, right? Practicing their skill set, really focusing on technical skill sets and maybe the product. But also helping people give meaning to their art making. Then on the very far right is the creative arts therapist, which we learned earlier. They are licensed. Every single state has different credentialing requirements too. So they are the ones that are investing their time and money going back to school, getting the higher degree, and working with people that have actual diagnoses of mental health conditions. So they're using art as a way to help with that therapeutic process. And then there's a lot of people now that want to get into the middle space of social emotional facilitation. So you may have some like nursing experience, or maybe dabbled in dance for years, professionally or as an amateur. But there's skills that you can build upon already to have the space of being a facilitator on how to do prevention work, right? Community-based. It could be group sessions on empowering people on artistic abilities for coping mechanism, right? Not to be the perfect artist or the perfect dancer, but just to have some tools, especially in a social setting too.
Hi, my name is Betty Rosen, and I am the lead teaching artist for the Arts Council for Long Beach. Been there 10 years. I also have my own business called Mosaic Alchemy, where we provide art and social experiences that offer healing and create one-of-a-kind art pieces, of which I hope you all will put down a tesserae on your way out. We have some participatory activities for you at the end. So, it's so nice to not have to say all the things that I have to say all the time about art and healing, because you guys are all proof. So, but basically, the I Am Design program at the Arts Council is a 15-session program with 2 field trips, one that come here to see the sculpture symposium on your campus from the 70s, and one goes to downtown Long Beach exploring public art. This started with 3rd graders as a group developed with the Cooper Hewitt Museum in New York, and has evolved over all these years to include the students making their own mosaic for their things I just want to say that, sorry, I got nervous. The pandemic opened up the conversation about mental health. You can say the words mental health and art in the same sentence now, and no one thinks you're crazy. So, anyway, these are some of the projects I've done in Greece. The bottom mosaic is in the Harvard UCLA Medical Center, and that was done in 2008 when all the artists, we all lost our jobs, so we were like, let's do something together. And then somebody bought it over 15 weeks and wound up donating it back to the hospital. So, and all your presentations showed me how valuable that is for everybody walking by. Yeah. And then, because I didn't want to spend time and money on masters, I wound up with certification in Creative Journal Expressive Arts with Dr. Lucia Cappuccioni. If anyone's, she's got 23 books on art and wellness, recovery of the inner child, power of the other hand. She worked with Disney Imagineering designers when that was closing down, and that, my personal view, is why Las Vegas looks like it does. A lot of those people took their expertise and designed it elsewhere. But with a crayon and a piece of paper, you can reduce your stress, get in touch with your inner wisdom, that kind of thing. So I found plenty of inner bullies. So I printed them on plates, and because I'm a mosaic artist, smashed them, and then you can use them to make a heart on your way out. So just the arts are physical for me. I break things for a living. So and now the students I teach to break things, you know, they love it. You know, we never have permission to do that kind of stuff, right? So, and then the safe spots are the antidote to that.
That's awesome, thank you. And Betty brought all these fantastic materials so we can use some of her breakage and make beautiful art out of all that emotion. Thank you, Betty.
Yeah, and I hope everybody gets that. They're really Fioris for everybody, so you have a touchstone to take home with you.
We all get nervous, especially as we spend more time behind like a Zoom camera than we have to talk to in front of people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
much
where I'll
rather,
work with you.
I would rather work with you than just talk to you. Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect. Okay, so now I'd love to just hear, so we're gonna talk about this intersection at a couple different levels. So first, I kind of want to zoom out and look at a macro perspective, and really Jen and Lisa look at you. And we'll start with Jen, because we just heard about the amazing news out of Georgia. And I know that you do so much work up in Sacramento for Arts Advocacy Day. So can you share a little bit about Arts Advocacy Day and what type of messaging you find like resonates with legislators about the importance of investment in the arts?
Thank you. First of all, so proud of Marcel, because when I heard that news, I was like, yes! So Arts Advocacy Day is a free event day. It's happening April 21st this year in Sacramento. It follows a 2-day summit that we have up there too, so gathering of people that works in, working in different arts and culture sectors. So right now I'm coordinating meetings with all of our 120 state lawmakers. So if you're interested in learning about how this works, you're welcome to come up and enjoy the day or just the weekend as well with our other festivities. So it's really about framing policy and talking points to lawmakers that it's not just about the arts, it's how to get the case of art making and into health policy in California policy. So we can speak to the choir all we want in terms of lawmakers who enjoy the art and they're champions, right? But they really need to see, especially in the last handful of years, they really need to see concrete evidence. So pilot programs, research, right? And not just peer review. Some of them don't want to read the peer review. They want just like high level stats. So qualitative and quantitative data really matters. And also using the arts as a way of storytelling to present these data. So that's number one. They're champions, but they're like, we need something more tangible. So right now we're working on a few policy recommendations, especially for making artists and creative workers as essential health workers. How can we get them trained to become certified community health workers on the public health lens and combine their transferable skills? So that's one good example of that.
Yeah,
went out and heard from folks who were talking about this in the field, and then brought me on saying, all right, go make it happen. Just realizing how important it is. So it's that advocacy piece, it's the talking about it, so that people hear it who are in those positions of power that can say, all right, we're gonna put resources and people behind this. And what that sort of means for us as an organization is we recently reconstructed our mission, or the way that we say it. And in that, we called ourselves not only an artistic institution, but also an educational organization. And defining ourselves in those terms really means that we have a responsibility to educate people, and when you take on that responsibility, the arts and health is innate, right? When you add in the education piece, then you're saying, okay, well, we're intentionally responsible for this piece. And so that means that we double down on the initiatives that we have, but we also go out and now we're talking with our community, because at that regional level, what they want is important. It's less important about what we want done in the community, and more important to talk to the people who are living in our community and region and saying, what are the gaps? What are your needs? Is it mental health? Is it mobility and access? Like, what are your needs? And then looking at ourselves and saying, what can we do to meet those needs? And that will define what pilots we put out and what kind of things we can do to help the community.
Perfect. Okay, that's a perfect segment to talking about people. And so now I kind of want to notch down one bit and focus on local initiatives and on the ground programming. So Betty and Joe, I'm looking at you. So Betty, as you know, artists and teaching artists have been really central to this work since apparently 1969 and well beyond that and well before. So would you share more about how your programs operate with the kids here in Long Beach Unified, and contrast some of that experience that you have working with kids and then working with adults in your writing programs?
Okay.
Teaching artists. Trial by fire. I mean, there was a teaching artist guild for a while. It sadly has disbanded and may morph into something else. But basically, it means going into the classroom with this curriculum, getting the principals on board, getting the teachers on board, so they're active participants as opposed to not just like on their phones grading or shopping at Target, which happens, because they could benefit just as much as the students do. For us, it's important that the students see themselves as public artists by the end of the curriculum, which they are. My personal view is that everyone is an artist. We just don't have to make money off of it. We all express ourselves in many different ways, from fashion to cooking. Working with third graders, now third graders are more like second graders since the pandemic. So the fourth graders we have now are more like third graders. So what I found is that the IM design curriculum actually works for everybody. And we did use the IM design curriculum with high school students during the pandemic, or at the end of the pandemic, because that's where the need was. It was McBride High School. They had had some suicides. So they asked us to come in with a shorter version of IM design, and we did a mural of Mr. McBride with them. When I work outside of the Arts Council with other populations, be it Alzheimer's patients, Down syndrome, recently homeless families on Skid Row, I find these days the adults need art as much, if not more, as the kids. Or if we do tabling somewhere, the kids will come by and the adults are like, I don't need, I'm like, please sit down. Please join us. We all need this. We look at the adult coloring book phase that everybody's going through. So I think these skills are transferable and beneficial for all of us.
Skunkworks has always tried to do, separate from the art, is pair outside thought leaders with inside thought leaders to kind of establish equity. So we have all these different training platforms where public speakers, industry leaders come in to impart their wisdom on the incarcerated community. And we decided to do that with artists. And so you have these fabulous artists who, every artist we talked to did not want to come in, and explicitly did not want to come into a prison and just paint something and walk away. They wanted to come in, meet the community, do workshops, listen to stories, listen to people's personal journeys before they conceptualize their art, so that the art would be speaking for and speaking to the community. And so to have those type of conversations and to have that sharing space with artists and with the incarcerated residents, it's just really empowering. And it's really, before all this stuff, I would always joke with people that in a men's prison, the hardest men's prisons, you end up seeing grown men cry quite often, right? Like in rehabilitative groups and, NA meetings, all this stuff. And then to have this type of emotional outpouring through art and through art projects, it's just really incredible. And we always invite people to come into San Quentin to meet the team inside, to kind of do a tour to see this stuff. And the people that come in, so often they use words like life-changing, or I didn't expect, to talk to convicted murderers, all these different serious crimes, and find some kind of just humanity. And so by bringing in these art projects, bringing in artists, just engaging this type of conversation on a regular basis, it just changes the way guys end up looking at themselves for the better. And so it's really, it is about having a nice, beautiful picture up, but there's just all this personal investment that comes through the work. And I think that is, and it's something that I have talked about and thought about, but then to actually experience it now that I'm on the outside and going back into San Quentin, it's been really incredible.
That's really cool. Karen, yeah, can I have one more thing? One of the other things that ties in with what you're talking about that we teach the students when they make these mosaics for their school is the concept of stewardship, because there's a lot of graffiti and vandalism, and so there's the physical stewardship of the mosaic that they're working on, but it's also the storytelling. And so, they signed an agreement that says that they will be there to raise money if something happens to them, but that they will also continue to tell the story of what they experienced through the Ion Design program, and now that they are a public artist as well.
That's amazing. And do you guys ever find that within your programs, you're working with very naturally talented folks anyway, and bringing these to them, you can just let talent just flourish?
It's always the bad kids.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, if somebody says, "Oh, this guy's a," I'm like, "Oh, kill me." Because they need other outlets. They're kinesthetic. They, like you were saying about, doodling while you're paying attention. They can't stay in their seats. And autistic populations are incredible with drawing because they can.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's amazing that programs like this still exist. And then I want to make sure that we have time for our group mosaic activities, some time for our questions as well. So I have just one more question that I would love to just run by the group. And because I'm sure that there's a lot of room here, there might be some folks, and especially students, and maybe if there's professors in here, they want to transmit information, tour your students, but people, especially young and mid-career professionals that are interested in getting into this field. So can we just go down the line and talk about what advice can we share for those folks, students, mid-career professionals looking to explore or enter this very broad and exciting but very amorphous arts and wellness space? We can start with you.
I was talking about this earlier with them before the thing. I just think it's really valuable, and I know that there aren't always these opportunities, but you have to kind of look for them and make them happen. But you really should invest your time in a project or a career goal that you love doing or that means something been doing while I was incarcerated and now out in the free world, I don't really look at most of that stuff as work per se. I look at it as something like I want to do. Like, this is awesome, this is exciting, this has meaning to me. And you know, when you pursue things with that attitude, it kind of just starts an avalanche type effect, and it just opens more and more doors because people, they see your energy and they see the excitement, and it's kind of infectious. And so I always look for projects like that. And you know, I've been very fortunate, and I just hope that everybody else has those same type of fortuitous opportunities. They're there if you look for them.
I would just say you belong in this space, and there's not a perfect recipe or a perfect linear path that is the acceptable one. Actually, the more diversity in your life that you're bringing to this, the better, because it is a co-creation to what everyone has said earlier. And so, you know, those spots that you feel like, well, I'm not good enough to participate in this because I don't yet have this piece, or I don't have the right experience, or when you look at a job breakdown, I'm not 80% of that role. Don't let that stop you from saying, I want to work in this space. Just keep if you want to do this, say it, talk about it, manifest it. It's a real thing. It happens. I'm looking to fill a role right now. There are a lot of opportunities, so it's really the passion and practicing articulating what you want out of life will put you where you want to be.
I agree. This is not a linear path. A lot of us come from different worlds, different skill sets, and somehow you kind of see at some point the connections between the dots of all your different interests. So really self-reflecting, self-assess your soft skills, hard skills, and seek all learning opportunities and plant those seeds. So even if it's volunteering, starting a volunteering to help with workshops, right? Help with different venues. That's a start. And just to keep learning and growing, and definitely collaboration is that supportive platform for you to grow your career.
Yeah, this is my third career. So I would just suggest that it takes a supportive community, courage, and naivete to explore what's important to you. I think the other thing that's been really valuable to me was redefining my definition of success, because I don't work most Monday mornings. And to me, being able to take a walk on the beach on a Monday morning, even in front of the beautiful houses, you know, it's like they're out there working for that house, but I'm here. So I just think it's important. You know, sometimes we get, you know, the definitions of your title or your income bracket or whatever, but I think health and happiness are more important to me now than
So we have some time for question, Q&A, and then Betty's going to take us on our guided art experience. Any questions for our awesome panel?
Question for Jen. I was just curious if you had like parallel marketing efforts or advocacy efforts at the local level. You talked a lot about this.
Yeah, so we are building out an advocacy toolkit. One thing I would encourage is for folks to attend not only our local arts council, because that's the choir. It might be an easier lift to get some of these arts and health initiatives embedded. It's also going to your city's like art commission, park and rec commission, art committees. I sat in my local one and I'm the only one there. So practicing like public comments, we have templates for that too. So really practicing public comments, whether it's in person or virtual. And again, in the marketing world, it takes 7 touch points before someone actually acts upon something. They want to hear it from colleagues, friends, through the news, through, you know, person one-on-one. So definitely don't give up, and it's practice, practice, practice.
And now the libraries are becoming these, like our executive director, Griselda Suarez. Woo!
arts and culture programming in the city, so we're constantly making sure that that remains. We're always pushing for that to grow, and we're really lucky here in Long Beach. And I also know there's opportunity with our representative Lowenthal. He's really into mental health, and especially mental health in teenage girls, because he has teenage girls. So to that important point of like, and to what Marcel was saying, speak to what resonates with folks. Like we're sitting on a lot of cool opportunities here to copy.
Proclamations. Like proclamations are so easy to do, and you just need to find one county commissioner or city council member, and they can get it done. And then you use that proclamation, and you're just like, hey, look, your city council has this language, and it really helps to normalize.
And we do have proclamation templates at CHHS.org.
And that's all online, right?
Online.
So thank you everybody for being here today. Each and every one of you has done so much for our campus. I work at our Performing Arts Center here, the Carpenter Center, so I appreciate your role in what you're doing to service here on a really grand level. And I point out that my programs are grant recipients from Arts Council Long Beach. And one thing that I learned, I've been in this role for 3 years, so and new to it, because I've tornadoed my way through life in the non-linear way. And so I learned about, because Cal Presenters is a group of arts council or arts performing arts centers in California and the West Coast primarily. And so I learned about the social prescriptions through them, and it's just such an idea that I think we could really implement here on campus. And I think there's ways to do it in the parameters that you seem to have, on a campus, like a CSU. And so I'm putting that out there just because this is our Long Beach State campus community to, that I would love to be able to provide my program. I do have the liberty to provide tickets to our students. Most recent, for my class, for my limited community programming. But I've really, since I've been there, reached so many more different groups on campus, whether it's Gear Up, which works with, it's a cohort getting people into to college, to higher education, with Ollie. My Ollie friend is gone.
No, I
Oh, there she is.
sorry, my water control wasn't as good.
Not just the Carpenter Center, offering tickets to all of
Yes,
us. Also with our VA hospital. And then most recently, 2 weeks ago, I finally was able to get in touch with our Rising Scholars program on campus. And so 13 of our Rising Scholars students and a couple of their staff were able to make our show 2 weeks ago. So those are the types of little things that I'm trying to implement. It really is like putting yourself out there, but it's also voicing it so other people can also come to me, because emails and getting out this, nobody's reading all their emails.
Yeah.
And if they don't know your name or don't know where you're from, it's hard to say, oh, do you have something for my students? Are you willing to work? And I'm really supportive because the College of the Arts here is fantastic, and we have so many student shows in our College of the Arts, because we are such a premier, our music department, our music conservatory, our dance department. And those are things that even if I don't have tickets to mine, that we can prescribe students tickets to those types of shows. And those are things that we can pilot at a very low cost type of thing. And that's something, so I just am putting that out there for more conversation.
I'm glad you did, because we'll connect, and like when we were at this conference, NOAA, that Marcel mentioned, is a good National Organization for Arts and Culture. Yeah, and it's like the kind of old school one. But Allie Mayer from NJ
conditions exist and we could uplift them even more.
You know, the two professions are different, the art and the science. And you develop them, they're both of them, as needs animals and industrial. The art nursing and the science, you have the art within which the science operates. And that's what I see, this body of knowledge.
I do hope that that comes to you. Thank you, that's a perfect way to end this.
Yes, we need to continue the conversation. I think we all have so many ideas and also just feel very inspired. So I want to take some time for some closing remarks as well. So good afternoon, everyone. I just want to take a moment to thank you all. Thank you to our panelists, our speakers, to everyone who showed up today for the time, the honesty, and the work you shared with us. It was very powerful. And I also want to take a moment to thank Grace for suggesting to bring this to our campus. And I can really see why you wanted to bring this conversation here. You're such an incredible leader, and this space, dialogue, and energy is exactly what we need as a reflection of your vision and a lot of our visions as well. So what we heard today, it wasn't just about art. We heard about transformation, about healing, about people being given the chance to see themselves differently. From Marcel's framing of arts and well-being to Joe's insight, San Quentin creating spaces of dignity and ownership, to the ways we're thinking about policy, education, and community practice. One thing was clear, that this is a movement. As soon as I was hearing you all, I realized this is a movement. And it's already happening. What stood out to me is how work lives across so many different spaces, even in the room here, in healthcare, in communities, in schools, in systems that are being reimagined. And what connects all of it is something very simple. What I take from it is people need spaces so that they can feel human, where they can express, they can process, where they can feel like they belong. And I want to share something personal for a moment. Sitting here, I felt inspired as I shared. As a social worker, as a researcher, and as someone who cares deeply about community, I could feel the possibilities of this work. And my mind was moving, thinking about the impact, the partnerships, and what this could really become here at Cal State Long Beach, but also in our communities. Because my work centers on culturally responsive approaches and storytelling, and what we talked about today aligns deeply with that. I also see how storytelling is not just about sharing, it's about healing, identity, about being seen, and that brings me to what I keep coming back to. This is about belonging. And every example we saw today, whether it was murals, dance, music, community art, it all created a space where people can say, I matter, I have a voice, and I'm part of something. And that matters in education, it matters in health, it matters in our communities. So as we leave today, I want to invite all of us to think about our role in this. How do we continue this work? How do we build partnerships? How do we bring this into our classrooms, our research, our organizations, our communities? Because this belongs to all of us. And I have chills. And before you go, we have a small swag bag for all of you to thank you. But more than that, I hope that you leave with something bigger, a sense of possibility, a sense of connection, and a deeper understanding of what it means to create spaces where people truly belong. So thank you again for being here, for being part of this, and for the work that